The grand meeting hall was alive with the hum of conversations and the clinking of glasses. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered for the annual Galactic Council. On one side of the room, the Forksy, tall, proud, and with skin like dark metal, stood as the center of attention. Known for their military strength and advanced technology, the Forksy were the unchallenged rulers of their corner of the galaxy. No one dared to question their superiority. But that day, one human, Captain Amelia Grant, stood before them, ready to change everything. The room quieted when the Forksy leader, Commander Zorath, stood to address the council. His voice was sharp, a mixture of amusement and disdain. He looked down at the human delegation from his elevated position. "I have heard many things about your people," Zorath began. "That you are resilient, yes. That you can survive harsh conditions, yes. But can you truly endure the unforgiving? Can you survive a death world?" The room fell silent. A death world. The very name sent shivers down the spines of many who had heard of it. The term was reserved for planets so dangerous that no species could survive without years of preparation and the finest technology. Only the bravest, or the most foolish, ever dared step foot on such a place. Zorath's lips curled into a smug smile. "We have a proposal for your humans. We challenge you to survive on a death world. We'll transport you to one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. No help, no technology. You'll face its predators, its environment, and its deadly creatures. If you survive, we'll give you the respect you crave. If not, well, we'll remember that you were foolish enough to accept." The Forksy representatives cheered at their leader's words. They were sure the challenge would break the humans, as it had broken so many others before them. The death world would be their tomb. Captain Amelia Grant, standing at the front of the human delegation, stepped forward. Her calm expression never wavered. The human race had been underestimated for too long. She knew this challenge would be a chance to show the galaxy that humanity was far more than the sum of its weakness. She looked directly at Commander Zorath, her voice steady and clear. "We accept your challenge," she said. "But know this, humans don't just survive. We thrive." A gasp ran through the room. Zorath's smug smile faltered for just a moment, but then he straightened. "We shall see, Captain," he said. "Prepare yourselves. The death world awaits." As the challenge was set in motion, the tension in the room was palpable. Amelia turned to her team, her eyes full of fire. This was more than just a test of survival. It was a test of humanity's spirit. The Forksy may have underestimated them, but by the time this was over, the galaxy would know one thing for sure: never challenge a Deathworlder. The transport ship carrying the human team hovered above the surface of the Death World. From the window, Captain Amelia Grant could see the jagged mountains, thick forests, and vast, stormy oceans stretching far below. The planet looked alive with danger. The air was thick and charged with electricity, and dark clouds swirled in the sky like something alive. It was the perfect place for a species to prove its strength, or break under pressure. Amelia glanced around at her team. There were 10 of them, all handpicked for this mission. They were survival experts, military veterans, and scientists, each with their own skills, but all with the same goal: to survive and show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. "Everyone, check your gear," Amelia said, her voice steady. "We don't know what we're up against, but we will face it together." Her team nodded, making final checks on their equipment. Their weapons were basic, nothing like the high-tech tools the Forksy would use, but that wasn't what they needed. They didn't need fancy gadgets. They had something better: their resourcefulness and determination. The ship touched down with a soft thud. The ramp lowered, and a blast of hot, thick air hit them like a wall. The scent of the planet was sharp and unfamiliar, a mixture of sulfur and damp earth. As they stepped onto the ground, the first thing that struck them was the silence. There were no birds chirping, no soft rustling of leaves in the wind, just an eerie stillness that hung in the air. Amelia looked out over the vast, rocky landscape. The Death World was not a place for anyone to live. The ground was cracked and dry in some places, covered in thick, poisonous vines in others. Giant, blood-red trees towered in the distance, their roots crawling across the ground like serpents. Every part of the planet seemed designed to kill. "We need to make camp before dark," Amelia said, taking a deep breath. The air felt heavy in her lungs, but it wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the knowledge that something was watching them, something waiting for them to make a mistake. As the team moved through the dangerous terrain, the first of the planet's creatures appeared. A massive, six-legged beast emerged from the shadows. Its body was covered in thick, bony plates, and its eyes glowed a bright, predatory yellow. It was as big as a small house, its claws sharp enough to slice through metal. The humans froze, weapons raised. But Amelia held up a hand, signaling for them to wait. "We don't attack unless we have to," she said. "Stay calm." The creature sniffed the air, its head swiveling from side to side. It didn't seem to be in a hurry, but it wasn't about to let the humans off easy. Slowly, it began to circle them, its heavy steps shaking the ground beneath them. "Get ready," Amelia whispered. But just as the creature prepared to charge, a loud, shrill scream echoed from the distance. The creature's head jerked up, distracted by the sound. It hesitated for a moment, then turned and ran toward the noise. The humans stayed still, not daring to move until it was gone. Amelia exhaled, her heart racing. "That was too close," she muttered. "But we survived." They had made it through the first test of the Death World, but Amelia knew this was only the beginning. There was so much more to face. The Forksy had underestimated humanity, but they hadn't seen the worst of the Death World yet. The planet would test them in ways they couldn't imagine. But Amelia was sure of one thing. No matter what, they would never give up. The days on the Death World passed slowly. The air felt thick with danger, and the constant buzzing of insects was a reminder that something was always watching. Every step felt like it could be their last. Yet, despite the risks, the humans pressed forward. They were here to prove something, and they weren't going to fail now. Captain Amelia Grant led her team through the rough terrain. Their first goal was simple: survival. They needed food, water, and shelter. The planet didn't offer any of these easily. The ground was dry, and the rivers that cut through the land were filled with acidic water that burned on contact. "It's going to be tough," Amelia said as she surveyed their surroundings. "But we'll find a way." The team set to work. They worked quickly, building shelters using large, thick leaves and branches from the strange trees. They had a basic understanding of the planet's ecosystem, but it wasn't enough. They needed more knowledge, more resources. It didn't take long for the first real test to arrive. As they began to gather food, a loud roar echoed through the forest. The ground shook beneath their feet. The humans froze. Amelia's hand went to her side, where a weapon hung loosely in its holster, but she didn't draw it immediately. She needed to know what they were up against first. From the shadows, a massive creature appeared. It was a huge reptilian beast, with scales like armor and teeth that could crush bone. Its eyes were bloodshot, and it stared at them with pure hunger. The Forksy hadn't told them about these creatures. They hadn't warned them what the planet could throw at them. The creature charged. It moved with lightning speed for its size, its mouth wide open, ready to strike. "Get back," Amelia shouted to her team. "Form a defensive line." The humans scrambled into action. They had no choice but to fight. They didn't have high-tech weapons, but they knew how to improvise. A few of them set up a barricade using fallen logs and rocks, while others used basic energy rifles, firing shots to distract the beast. The creature slammed into the barricade with a roar, knocking a few of them aside. Amelia took a deep breath. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a test of their ability to think on their feet. "Stay calm," she yelled. "Aim for the eyes. Don't let it get close." The humans fired again and again, but the creature was tough. It ignored most of the shots, its thick scales barely dented. But the humans had a plan. Using the environment to their advantage, they led the creature into a narrow pass between two cliffs. It was a risky move, but it was their best chance. The creature followed, and just as it entered the trap, the humans set off a series of loud explosions they had rigged with rocks and flares. The sound was deafening, and the creature paused, disoriented. It was the opening the humans needed. With quick coordination, they surrounded the creature, using ropes and nets to bind its legs. It roared in fury, but it couldn't escape. After what seemed like an eternity, the creature collapsed, exhausted and trapped. Breathing heavily, Amelia wiped sweat from her brow. "That's how you survive on a death world," she said, her voice steady. "Adapt, and never give up." Her team gathered around her, proud of their victory. It wasn't just about defeating the creature. It was about proving that they could face anything this planet threw at them. The death world was relentless, but the humans were more determined than ever. They weren't going to let anything stop them from showing the galaxy what humanity could do. Days turned into weeks on the death world. The humans had grown stronger, adapting to the challenges of the planet with each passing day. They found new ways to trap dangerous creatures, learned how to use the planet's resources to their advantage, and even started to feel a strange connection to the harsh land around them. It was no longer just a test, it was becoming their home. But deep in the shadows, the Orcs were watching, and they were growing impatient. In the safety of their spaceship orbiting above the death world, Commander Zoreth paced back and forth. He had underestimated the humans. They were surviving, thriving even, despite all the dangers they had thrown at them. This was supposed to be a victory, a moment where the galaxy would see the weakness of humanity, but it was quickly turning into a nightmare. "They're doing far better than we anticipated," Zoreth muttered to his officers. "They should have died by now." The officers nodded, but one of them, a younger Orc named Tajur, spoke up. "Commander, perhaps it's time we consider." Zoreth cut him off, his eyes flashing with anger. "No, the humans must break. We will not let them succeed." Tajur hesitated but said nothing. Zoreth had made up his mind. The Orcs' pride could not afford to be humbled by a mere species like humanity. "Prepare the next phase," Zoreth ordered coldly. "Release the wraiths." Meanwhile, on the death world below, Captain Amelia Grant and her team were setting up camp near a river that, surprisingly, seemed safe. The team had made incredible progress, their spirits high despite the ongoing dangers. They knew they were close to completing their mission, but the air still felt thick with something else, a feeling of impending danger. Then it came. In the middle of the night, the ground trembled. Amelia woke with a start, her hand instantly reaching for her weapon. The others stirred, but before they could react, a loud, shrill howl echoed through the air. The sound was unlike anything they had heard before. Suddenly, from the darkness, a new breed of creature appeared, strange, nightmarish things that seemed to blend into the shadows. Their bodies were like liquid, shifting and warping, making them nearly invisible against the backdrop of the night. Their eyes glowed red, piercing through the darkness. The team barely had time to react. The creatures attacked with terrifying speed, their claws sharp enough to rip through metal. The humans fought back with everything they had. They fired their weapons, but the creatures were too fast, too elusive. Every shot seemed to miss, every swing of their makeshift weapons blocked. "Stay together," Amelia yelled as the team formed a circle, back to back, trying to protect each other. But the creatures kept coming, their numbers growing as more and more materialized out of the shadows. "Get to the ship," Amelia ordered. "We need to regroup." But as they tried to make their escape, the creatures attacked in waves, pushing them further into the wilderness. The humans fought with everything they had, but the creatures were relentless. They'd never seen anything like this before. This wasn't a natural predator. This was something else, something engineered. It didn't take long for Amelia to realize what had happened. The Forksy had done this. They had sent these creatures to break them, to finish the challenge once and for all. "They've been watching us," Amelia muttered, fury rising in her chest. This was no accident. The humans fought with renewed strength. They had survived before, and they would survive again. But now they weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for revenge. The attack from the wraiths had left the humans shaken, but not broken. Amelia Grant, though exhausted, stood tall, her face grim but determined. The creatures sent by the Forksy had tested them in ways they hadn't expected, but it was clear now. The Forksy were afraid. They were trying to crush the human spirit by throwing their worst at them. But instead of fear, the humans felt something else: rage. They had been challenged, and they would rise to it. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were fighting back. The team gathered around a campfire that night, nursing their wounds and regrouping. Despite the chaos of the attack, they had managed to fight off the wraiths and escape with their lives. But the reality of what had happened set in. The Forksy had sent those creatures, and they would stop at nothing to see humanity fail. "We need to prepare for the worst," Amelia said, looking at the others. Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in her eyes. "The Forksy want us to break, but they don't know us. We don't quit. We never have." Her words were like a spark in dry grass, lighting something inside the others. They had faced death again and again, but they hadn't given up. They wouldn't give up now. For the next few days, the humans worked together to strengthen their camp and make sure they were ready for anything. They used everything the Deathworld offered: twisted plants, sharp rocks, and even the bones of the creatures they had slain. They built traps and weapons, learning from their past mistakes and refining their strategy. Their teamwork was becoming more synchronized, and each member of the team brought something unique to the table. Amelia led them with confidence, but she wasn't alone. Lieutenant Raul Hernandez, a former Special Forces operative, had become her right hand, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Dr. Jessica Liu, a scientist specializing in alien ecosystems, was invaluable in figuring out how to use the planet's strange plants for medicine and food. And then there was Sergeant Tomko, who was always the first to jump into action, never hesitating when danger loomed. "We've got this," Hernandez said one evening as they sat around the fire, looking out at the dark forest. "They want us to break, but they don't know us. We're humans. We adapt. We survive." The others nodded in agreement. It was true. The Deathworld was harsh, but they were harsh too. Each trial, each challenge, only made them stronger. The Forksy might think they could scare them into submission, but the humans knew something the Forksy didn't. When pushed to the edge, humanity didn't fall. It rose. By the end of the week, the humans were more prepared than ever. They had become a true team, unified not just by survival, but by something deeper: pride. They weren't just fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for all of humanity, for their place in the galaxy. The next test was coming, but they were ready. And when the Forksy came, they would learn the most important lesson of all. Humanity didn't just survive the Deathworld. Humanity owned it. The calm before the storm was always the hardest. Amelia Grant knew this well. After the attack of the wraiths, the humans had taken their time to regroup and prepare, but she could feel the tension in the air. The Forksy wouldn't stop. They had shown their hand, and now they were waiting for the humans to break. But Amelia had no intention of letting that happen. The Deathworld was full of dangers, yes, but the creatures here weren't the only threat. The true danger lay in the shadows. The Forksy, watching, waiting, hoping to see their challenge fail. But Amelia wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. She was done hiding. "We need to take the fight to them," she said one evening, standing before her team. Her voice was filled with purpose. "We can't keep playing defense. The Forksy are smart, but they don't know what we're capable of." The team gathered around her, listening closely. They had fought hard to survive up until this point, But now it was time to strike back. Amelia knew that the Forksy wouldn't expect them to go on the offensive. They thought they could wear the humans down, break their spirit. But that was a mistake. "We've learned how to survive on this planet," she continued. "Now we need to learn how to make them feel the same fear they tried to make us feel." Lieutenant Raul Hernandez nodded, his eyes sharp. "We have the knowledge, the tools, and the skills. We've been fighting for survival. Now it's time to turn that into something they'll regret." Dr. Jessica Liu, who had become the team's expert on the planet's ecosystem, added, "We know the terrain. We know what we can use against them. If we can set the right traps, we can hit them where it hurts." Sergeant Tonko, always eager for action, grinned. "Finally, it's time to hunt." And so, the plan was set into motion. Over the next few days, the humans worked tirelessly. They didn't just prepare to fight. They prepared to hunt the Forksy. They set up advanced traps, more elaborate and dangerous than anything they had done before. They studied the patterns of the creatures and the terrain, learning how to use the Deathworld to their advantage. They knew how to use the very environment that had once been their greatest enemy. At night, they moved quietly through the jungle, setting snares, digging pits, and camouflaging their traps. They had learned how to read the land, how to understand the shifting winds, and the strange sounds of the planet. Everything had a purpose now. Everything was a weapon in their hands. The day came when they were ready. The Forksy would try to send more creatures to finish them off. But this time, it wasn't just a matter of survival. This time, the humans would make the Deathworld their weapon. They would show the Forksy that they were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. The humans moved swiftly, silently, knowing that this was the moment they had been waiting for. The Forksy had underestimated them, and now they were going to learn that humanity didn't just survive the Deathworld. Humanity could master it. As they waited in the shadows, eyes trained on their prey, Amelia felt a rush of adrenaline. The hunt was on, and this time, the Deathworld would be their ally. The humans had spent days preparing, and now they were ready. They knew the Forksy were watching, waiting for an opportunity to strike, but the humans were no longer the prey. They were hunters, and they had set the perfect trap. Amelia Grant crouched low in the dense underbrush, her team scattered around her. They had already laid several traps, each designed to catch the Forksy's attention. Now they just needed to wait for the right moment. Lieutenant Raul Hernandez, standing to her right, whispered, "We've got this. They won't know what hit them." Amelia nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. The Forksy had been sending more creatures their way, pushing them harder with each new attack. But the humans had adapted. They had learned to turn the Deathworld into an advantage, using its dangers against those who dared to challenge them. Through the thick foliage, the first sign of movement appeared. A figure, cloaked in shadows, moving silently through the jungle. The Forksy were coming. Amelia's heart raced. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The Forksy didn't know they were walking into a trap. They had sent another wave of creatures, thinking the humans would fight back in the open, just as they had before. But the humans were smarter now. They had baited them into the perfect position. As the Forksy moved closer, the trap was sprung. A series of loud explosions echoed through the jungle, shaking the ground beneath them. The Forksy's creatures screeched in surprise, but it was too late. The humans had set up snares, pits, and barricades, all hidden beneath the thick underbrush. The first Forksy soldier fell into a pit, his screams muffled by the earth. The rest tried to react, but it was chaos. The jungle was alive with movement, the humans blending in with the environment, using the shadows and their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. "We've got them," Sergeant Tonko shouted as he emerged from his hiding spot, charging at a group of Forksy soldiers. His weapon blazed with energy, striking down one of the creatures before it could react. Amelia moved quickly, directing the team. "Keep the pressure on them. Don't let them regroup." The humans fought with fierce determination, using their traps to slow the Forksies' advance. The Forksy had the advantage of technology, but the humans had something far stronger: willpower and teamwork. They were driven by the desire to prove that they could overcome anything, that they could face down the galaxy's greatest threats and still come out on top. As the battle raged on, Amelia could see the Forksy beginning to retreat. They were disorganized, confused, and desperate. They hadn't expected the humans to fight back like this. They hadn't expected the Deathworld to turn against them. But the humans weren't done yet. They had one final move to make. With their enemies scattered, Amelia gave the order. "Now, we finish this." The humans moved swiftly, cutting off the Forksies' escape routes. They didn't want to just win. They wanted to send a message. The Forksy had come to break them, to make humanity's first step into the stars their last. But humanity was different. They didn't just survive. They conquered. The last of the Forksy soldiers fell, and the jungle fell silent. The humans stood victorious, their chests heaving with exhaustion and triumph. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. Amelia stood tall, looking over her team. "We've shown them what we can do," she said, her voice filled with pride. "But we're not done. The galaxy has no idea what's coming." The Forksy had underestimated humanity. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The Forksy, wounded and humiliated, had retreated into the depths of the Deathworld. But they would not stay hidden forever. Amelia Grant knew the Forksy's pride had been shattered, and when a being like them is hurt, they don't back down, they lash out. The humans had made a powerful statement, but the real fight was just beginning. The Deathworld was still full of danger, and the Forksy were not the kind to give up easily. Amelia could feel it in her bones. The Forksy were planning something big. And this time, they wouldn't underestimate the humans. "Let's get ready," she said to her team. "They won't let this go." Lieutenant Raul Hernandez nodded. "We've already taken the first blow. They won't attack us again the same way. We need to be ready for anything." The humans worked quickly. Their victory over the Forksy soldiers had been decisive, but it had come at a cost. They had taken losses, nothing they couldn't recover from, but the threat wasn't gone, not by a long shot. Over the next few days, the humans fortified their position. They dug deeper into the planet's rugged landscape, building stronger defenses, setting up more traps, and strengthening their resolve. The Deathworld had proven itself to be an unpredictable enemy, but the humans had learned to outsmart it. Now, they needed to be ready for the Forks' next move. Amelia paced in front of her team, each member busy with their tasks. Her mind raced. She knew that the Forksy would come again, and this time, it would come with everything they had. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the quiet was broken by a low rumble. The ground shook beneath them. Amelia's heart raced. "Here they come," she muttered, her eyes scanning the sky. "We don't have much time." Raul moved to her side. "Do you think they've called for reinforcements?" "I don't know," Amelia said, "but we'll be ready." The first wave of Forksy soldiers emerged from the shadows, this time accompanied by something much worse. Massive war machines, sleek and deadly. The Forksy had clearly learned from their previous defeat. They were bringing the full force of their military might. Amelia's team quickly fell into position, their eyes set with determination. The Forksy had underestimated them before, but the humans would not give them that luxury again. They had come to this Deathworld to prove themselves, and they would show the galaxy that humanity could survive anything. "Hold your ground," Amelia shouted. "We've got one shot at this. Stay focused." The humans launched their counterattack, using their traps to their advantage. Explosions echoed as they triggered hidden explosives, sending the Forksy's war machines into disarray. But the Forksy were relentless. They fought back with everything they had: energy weapons, heavy artillery, and their monstrous creatures. Despite the overwhelming odds, the humans pushed forward. They fought like a single, unbreakable unit. Each movement was calculated, every shot fired with precision. It was clear now, the humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The battle raged on, both sides locked in a deadly dance, neither giving an inch. The Forxies' war machines tore through the jungle, but the humans used the environment to their advantage. They knew the terrain better than their enemies, and they used that knowledge to outmaneuver them. But just as the humans thought they had the upper hand, a new threat emerged. An enormous Forxie flagship descended from the sky, blocking out the sun. It was massive, a symbol of the Forxies' last attempt to crush them once and for all. Amelia's heart sank. The fight was about to get even harder. But she knew one thing for sure. No matter what, the humans would never stop fighting. "Get ready for the final push," Amelia said, determination in her voice. "We're not done yet." The sky above the Deathworld was dark, its orange and purple hues painted with the shadow of the massive Forxie flagship. It hovered like a dark omen, blocking out the sun and casting a heavy weight on the humans below. The final battle was upon them. Amelia Grant knew that this was it. The Forxie were bringing everything they had left, hoping to end the war once and for all. But the humans weren't ready to give up. "We'll take it down," Amelia said, her voice calm but full of determination. "We have to." Lieutenant Raul Hernandez stood next to her, his face grim. "This is going to be tough, but we fought harder battles. We can do this." Sergeant Tonko, always eager for a fight, cracked his knuckles with a grin. "I've been waiting for something big. This is it." The humans had already faced the Forxies' best soldiers, their creatures, and their traps. Now they would face the full power of their war machines. But Amelia knew one thing for sure. The Forxie had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The humans quickly rallied together, forming a plan. They couldn't fight the flagship head-on, not with the limited resources they had. But they had something the Forxie didn't, a deep understanding of the Deathworld's treacherous terrain. They knew the planet's every danger, every hidden advantage, and they planned to use it. "We'll strike at their weak points," Amelia ordered. "We'll use the jungle to our advantage, make them think we're retreating, then hit them when they least expect it." With the plan set in motion, the humans moved swiftly, camouflaging themselves in the thick foliage. They were like shadows, silent and fast, moving through the jungle, ready to strike. Every member of the team had their role. Raul and Jessica would create distractions, while Tonko and Amelia would find the flagship's weak spots and attack from the inside. As the Forxie flagship descended closer to the surface, its weapons charged up, ready to unleash destruction. The humans moved with precision, staying one step ahead of their enemies. They set off explosions, drawing the Forxie's attention, and then vanished into the jungle once more. The Forxie commanders ordered their soldiers to search for the humans, but it was too late. Amelia and her team had already infiltrated the flagship's defenses, using the Forxie's own systems against them. They planted explosive charges along key power lines, silently working to disable the massive ship. Inside the flagship, the Forxie commanders realized their mistake. The humans weren't just surviving, they were winning. And by the time they understood the full extent of the threat, it was too late. With one final push, Amelia and her team triggered the explosives. The flagship shook violently, the sound of explosions deafening. Fires broke out across the ship, and the once mighty Forxie war machine began to collapse in on itself. The humans emerged from the wreckage, battered but victorious. The Forxie flagship was in ruins, and with it, the last of the Forxie's power. As the Forxie retreated, broken and defeated, Amelia looked around at her team. They had done the impossible. They had faced the galaxy's greatest threat and come out on top. "We've won," she said, her voice filled with pride. "The Forxie are done." The team stood together, looking at the wreckage of the Forxie flagship. They had survived. They had proven that humanity could overcome anything. No force in the galaxy could ever break them. And so, The humans had not only conquered the Death World, they had conquered the stars themselves. The galaxy would never forget the lesson the Forksy had learned. Never challenge a Deathworlder. Their revenge lasts forever.